I think this is something that people don't talk about especially in the field of nutritional research, is self-compassion. So, thinking about the goal that someone's trying to achieve, first of all, I always ask why. Like, why are you trying to achieve that goal? That's like the biggest thing. Is this an external pressure, or you think you're going to be accepted when you reach this stage? Or is this from an internal place that is really important to you to be able to move your body a little bit more, or to whatever that external goal is?
Ballerina that may be really relevant to reaching your life goals, but if you aren't, maybe not,
Exactly. This is the biggest thing. And I think trying to tell people to be self-compassionate when they slip up, because we all slip up. I mean, we all slip up. Nobody eats perfectly the entire time, maybe unless you're Brian Johnson, who was doing it, the most extreme experiment of all time on human nature. But apart from him, I don't think, there isn't anyone that has a day where they don't eat the way that they think they should be. So I was so amazed by seeing all this research you've done on how it can also help health behaviors. And I'd love to kind of start with the kind of dieting, weight measurement realm of self-compassion. And you've noted before about the donut study, and I'd love to talk about it, because I think this will transform the way people think about when they maybe have had a cheat day, and I even hate saying a cheat day because I don't believe in those. I think actually when somebody has something they really enjoy and then feel guilt and shame afterwards, this, I believe, is such an amazing thing to hear, because it can really help reframe somebody's mindset around those moments when shame, as you said, becomes such a strong emotion.
Yeah. So, I guess the underlying thing we have to consider partly is, why are you eating? And oftentimes we eat not because we're hungry, sometimes not even so much because it tastes good, but we're eating our emotions, right? We feel badly and we eat to think about it. When you eat and you're really full, it kind of numbs you out a little bit. And sometimes that can numb the edge off of difficult emotions. And so one of the basic findings, and I will get to the donut study, don't worry, but one of the basic findings of the research is that it reduces emotional eating and increases intuitive eating. Because when those difficult emotions come up, you have another resource to deal with them, which is compassion. You embrace yourself, you embrace your pain, you remember you aren't alone and that you're human. And you don't need to numb yourself out through something like, eating as a way of coping with your emotions. And one of the ways that plays out is when people do have weight loss goals and then they don't meet them, or they, so to speak, blow their diet, you call it a cheat day, or they do something that's not what they wanted to eat, then oftentimes we feel so guilty about it. We feel like, well, I'm a failure. I might as well just eat more because, I've already blown it and I'm a failure. So, and I feel bad about it. So I'm just going to kind of screw it. Right. And so one of the very first studies on self-compassion and eating behavior, which came out, I don't know, almost 20 years ago, it's one of the earliest studies, called the donut study. So basically what they did is they looked at a bunch of undergraduate women who were dieting. We aren't even supposed to say the word diet these days, but back then they called it dieting. They had weight loss goals. And they didn't know that that's why they were recruited for the study. So they were told they were put into a taste testing study. And as part of this taste testing study, one of the things they had to taste was a glazed donut. It's like a really fatty, greasy donut. And so half of the people, they said after eating the donut, yeah, it probably wasn't the healthiest thing. Trying to beat yourself up about it. As part of the study, everyone had to do it. Try to be kind to yourself and understanding. And then the other half, they didn't say anything, which is probably like, I can't believe I ate the whole donut. I can't believe my diet's ruined. Right? Who knows what was going on? And then they had a part 2 of the study, which is they asked them to taste some M&Ms. And they said, okay, here's a bowl of M&Ms. Taste however many you want, and let me know what you think. And so what they didn't know is they actually measured how many M&Ms the subjects ate. And they found that those who were told to be self-compassionate about eating the donut earlier ate fewer M&Ms in that part of the study. And those who were told and not anything and beat themselves up about eating the donut ate a lot more M&Ms. So that's the type of research you can do to show that often what happens is when we beat ourselves up, we either give up or we try to eat more as a way of controlling our difficult feelings. So there's a fair amount of research. I did one study actually with women who were struggling with body image very easy study. I just said, listen to the guided meditations on my website for 3 weeks. And what we found is after 3 weeks of doing that, their sense of self-worth was less contingent on their appearance. They're more able to get that sense of self-worth from the inside as opposed to how they looked. So, I mean, and there's a lot of research confirming these types of findings. So it makes a big difference. Why are we eating? Or why are we valuing ourselves? Are we really just valuing ourselves based on appearance, or not? Does it come from something deeper and more real and more stable, actually?
Well, I guess as I'm listening to you talk about it, a lot of wanting to eat more to hide that pain, it's coming from a painful place.
Yes.
Self-compassion is starting to acknowledge that you're in pain.
Yes.
And that's such a big lever to kind of helping you change that mindset, as opposed to kind of wiring it that this is the only thing that's going to make me feel safe. Because I guess with pain, there's also emotional safety that comes into conversation. And self-compassion does help increase that emotional safety when you feel that you've got your own back, and when you feel that you're really worthy of doing something that's good for you, you create a lot more emotional safety in your body.
Yeah, so absolutely. So it creates a sense of emotional safety so that you don't need to do things like eat. Another thing kind of related to this is a lot of research showing it increases grit or stick-to-itness. So let's say you do have a goal, a nutritional goal, an exercise goal, weight loss goal, or whatever your goal is, and you do make a mistake, have a setback. What it does is because you aren't kind of like that donut study, because you aren't blaming yourself, you're more able to just keep on trying. Just like, okay, one foot in front of the other. Yes, it's expected that I'm going to fall. It's not going to be a perfect linear line, and that's okay. And therefore I'll just stick to it. So it allows you to see what's important for you and to keep doing it, even if it's difficult and even if you stumble. And that's really huge because life's difficult. Whether you're trying to get a graduate degree or you're trying to raise kids or you're trying to be successful at your job, you will stumble. And so how are you with yourself? Again, how do you show up for yourself when you stumble? That's going to be a huge determinant of how strong you are, how resilient you are, and how able you are to keep going.
You mentioned one of the tools was meditations, which I know you have so many on your website, and self-compassionate body scans to really kind of connect more to our body, which I think in times of stress, which is, kind of an arching topic of the conversation, we dissociate from our bodies quite a lot. We get very much in our minds and we pull away from our bodies. Something else that I think could be really helpful to mention, which I know that you've done a lot on, is a self-compassionate letter. I'd love to talk about this because I remember I went to a retreat like 10 years ago. So after all of this happened and I came back to the UK from America, I started going to these like mind-body retreats. And they asked us to write a letter to ourselves in 6 months' time, and they were going to post it to us. And we had to do it from a very compassionate point of view. And we had to forgive ourselves for everything that's kind of happened in the past, and also where we really want to see ourselves in a scenario in 6 months' time. And they posted it to us in 6 months. And I remember having that. And I really remember how my mindset was changing even as I was writing it to myself. It was the first time that I was really putting up my thoughts to paper. So I thought it could be a really lovely thing to actually talk about for people who might be finding it hard to relate, that this could be a really great exercise for somebody to maybe connect to. And I know you've done a lot of research, again, we'll highlight that word, to show that this actually works.
Yeah, there was one study, actually it wasn't done by me, but people wrote a self-compassionate letter to themselves, I think every day for 7 days. And it reduced depression for 3 months and increased happiness for 6 months, just 7 days. So it's a really good investment of your time. And also there's a lot of research showing that writing in and of itself can be effective. I mean, you can just think these things to yourself, but there's something about putting the words on paper that makes them concrete. It's also, you feel a little more distance or objectivity when you're writing as opposed to just talking to yourself. So the idea is, when you write a self-compassionate letter, you want to basically have 3 main elements. And If you want, you can have a paragraph of each, or it can just be themes of the letter. You want to be mindful, bring awareness to the fact that you're struggling. You want to validate your pain. Say something like, I know you're really struggling. I know you're really hurting. It's what when you're doing that, you're bringing mindfulness of the fact that pain and suffering is here. You want to remind yourself that you aren't alone, that it's normal, it's human, there's nothing wrong with you for going through this situation. It's part of being a human being. And then you want to give yourself some words of kindness, some words of warmth, support, understanding. And again, it's very, if you're having difficulty, an easy way to do this is to think, what would I say to a really good friend who is going through the exact same situation I'm going through? And then the words come a lot more easily. So you can write it as if you're writing to a good friend, even though that's yourself. But then when you read the words, you read them as applying to yourself. And it can be very powerful, very, very powerful.
It kind of goes hand in hand as well with journaling, which I also think is a really powerful tool for self-compassion.
Yeah. So journaling, you can do it every night. You can write a letter, but some people actually, personally, I'm not one who likes to write. I've got terrible handwriting. It doesn't do it for me. So, it's great if you like to write, it's good. But you also can just say it to yourself. So I do something called the self-compassion break, which is I might put my hand on my heart and I'll go through the 3 steps. I'll say, Kristin, this is really hard. It's part of life. You're only human. You aren't the only one. Many, many people are going through something similar. And I'll say some words of kindness. Maybe think of what I might say to a friend and say something to me. This is what I find about the research over the years. We've done a lot of research. It doesn't really matter how you practice. For instance, meditation isn't any better than just putting your hand on your heart for 30 seconds every day or writing a letter. They all work. So what works is what's right for you. One pathway isn't necessarily better than another, but it does matter that we practice because, again, we have to remember it's not natural by evolution, or it's not the way we are raised by our culture. So we do have to build the muscle. Here's the thing, it's not actually hard to do because we've built the skill for others. We know how to be compassionate to our friends or our pets or our kids or our community members. We know what to say, we know how it feels. But what's not so natural is remembering to do it for ourselves. That's kind of the evolution. It's hard to remember. And culturally, it's hard to give ourselves permission because we get these messages like it's selfish or it's going to make us lazy or somehow it's bad. So if we can get through the fact that it doesn't come instinctually and give ourselves permission once we know that actually culture's wrong on this one. Research very clearly shows it's not going to do any of these things we're afraid of. Then we already know how to do it. That's the good news. It's not rocket science.